welcome back to another episode on Andertons TV. And today, my very special guest is Josh Middleton. You may know Josh from Architects, or maybe in a previous band, Sylosis. But yeah, we're just here to chat about life, the universe, and everything.
Cool.
So thanks for coming up.
Thanks for having me.
You don't live a million miles away from here, do you?
Reading, yeah, hour normally.
An hour.
Traffic, yeah.
Reading, the heart.
I actually used to go to ACM as well.
Oh, did you?
So, yeah.
What year was that?
The year I met my wife, 2004 maybe.
Oh, so you go? Yeah. Were they in the Robert building then, or was that in the old building?
I don't even know. It was above a pub.
Yeah, so it's it. That's cool. All right, that's cool. So we'll come on to influences and stuff. So I'm sure lots of people that watch this have studied at ACM too. Tell us a little bit about. So, Architects are a fairly sort of progressive metal band. But tell us about. Let's go back to Little Nipper, Josh.
Sure. Okay.
And how you got into guitar and what inspired you to play.
I guess my dad is a huge fan of music, so just car journeys, summer holidays, lots of music. So Beach Boys, Crowded House, Beatles, stuff that I still think of as like really good songwriting and stuff like that. And so I got obsessed with music early on, and I think I started playing guitar when I was about 8 or 9, and around then I started playing guitar, learnt to play To The Bends by Radiohead, which was big at the time, Oasis, first Foo Fighters album, some Nirvana obviously, Rage Against the Machine, and then moved on to Metallica and stuff. But I can't remember the exact reason I wanted to play guitar. Oh, I think my dad had one, like a really old, just really cheap one that he bought when he was a kid, and he never played. He's not a musician. He can't even clap in time, really. Sorry. He's got better now. Sorry, Dad. My mum's actually quite musical. She plays the piano.
Cool.
We had a piano in the house, so I used to mess around with that. So between those two things, I was just got obsessed with music early on.
Was it an acoustic guitar or an electric guitar?
An acoustic one, and it had flat wound strings on it.
Wow.
And
Metallica.
Yeah, it was terrible. I think I went for my first guitar lesson, and then the teacher was like, "You should get a proper guitar." So I got an old Epiphone acoustic. One of those classic things where get him an acoustic first. If he doesn't stick with it, you haven't spent all the money on electric.
Yeah.
And then after a year, I got a Squire and a combo, a Park G10.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No, yeah, that did me for years. So yeah, that was still in primary school. Yeah, 8 or 9.
Wow. And was
obsessed.
it instant? Were you get up in the morning, try and get 10 minutes on whilst your mum and dad are going, go and have your breakfast, Josh?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, definitely in my early years, even till I was about 14, most of what I was playing was songs and chords and stuff, even though I was into Rage Against the Machine and stuff. And Tom Morello has crazy leads, and obviously I like Metallica. The focus early on was, especially having lessons, was chords and playing songs. I feel like a lot of players in this day and age, especially in the metal sort of side of things, kids will pick up a guitar and they'll be trying to play along to their favourite bands, but you're can you play a song? And they're they don't know G and A minor and that stuff. So I felt like that was really important, get focused on songwriting and songs first.
So where in your teens were you? Were you getting into sort of bands with all your mates, or were you relatively just playing on your own? And when did that interest in maybe a more contemporary style of guitar playing come in? I
guess I mean, as soon as I started secondary school, and obviously a lot more people, I went to a very small primary school, I met a drummer in the first day, and he actually lived down my road.
Excellent.
So I just started going around his house, and he was actually the first Sylosis drummer.
Oh, cool.
So and that started pretty much when we were 13, so very early on. As soon as I was in secondary school, I started buying Kerrang, and it was just whatever was in there. So at the time,
And was Metallica were they the first real kind of metal band? And
them and Pantera were
right.
But then I always liked stuff like Smashing Pumpkins or Deftones and or Slipknot as well. I wasn't too like elitist or anything with my metal at that point.
Elitist metal. There's a new genre for the elitist metal. I don't know what it would be, but it sounds good. I always love stories of, you know, when your friend from school at 13 years old and then going on to form bands with them, and I just think it's such a, you know, such a brilliant way to kind of you know, go on a journey with a really good friend.
Yeah.
But so that how old were you when the sort of the basic, you know, Sylosis kind of guys got together?
About 14, 15. But
did you all ACM it, or were you the only?
No, it was just me. I mean, by the time we were at ACM, it was just me that was from that original lineup.
Right.
So Sylosis went through a lot of member changes.
Right. Okay.
Especially, I mean, we've been through some since, like, you know, releasing music properly, but even before that, there was a lot. I think, like, when you're...
How many members, Karen? How many members had there been?
I'd say about 10 or something. I don't know why I had to look at my hands.
I'm trying to think of, like, what's the comparison? What's the sort of the cliche band that have had like 1 million different members? But whoever.
Yeah, I mean, there was a time when we had 2 singers, and I didn't start off singing. I only took over singing in Sylosis when we'd already released our first album in like 2010. I took over doing that. So before I was always just a guitarist. But yeah, it's a lot of ex-members. But it's when you're young and like, this is the internet. Yeah, it was around, but it wasn't quite what it is today. So it was really hard to find members that people in your town that liked heavy music and could play. And like, I was super focused on my playing and trying to get really good at guitar. And if other members weren't like as obsessed, it was,
you're gone. Cut them out the picture.
A little bit, yeah. But I'm friends with a lot of those original guys still, so hopefully.
So talk me through the sort of, you obviously must have had an idea that you know, guitar was going to be a career path for you. I guess most people who go to study at ACM will have that.
Yeah.
Have that kind of idea. Were your parents supportive of that, or was it like, oh, train to be a doctor or something sensible?
No, my parents are pretty supportive. Like, my mum is an art teacher, retired, and my dad taught English, and he loves music. So I think between both of them,
people.
Yeah, they were both like very supportive.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So how soon was it after ACM that you were able to go full professional with that, and what did you do in the meantime to make ends meet?
Yeah, it was years and years. I mean, never really made enough money to live off it. I just did it just because it was sort of like the only option for me. It's like, I want to do it. If I have to do other stuff on the side, yeah, that's fine. I'm not doing it to, you know, make loads of money, which was fine. I don't mind that. But yeah, I mean, I lived with my parents at home a lot, which helped. Yeah. But I got into doing like artwork for bands, recording bands. I got really into production. Worked at Guitar Shop for a bit. Worked at HMV for a bit. That sort of thing.
Which guitar shop was it? Do I know them?
No, you might. Well, you might. It was a shop in Reading, and it only opened for like 3 years.
I think I know. Was it X? No, what was it called?
No, a guy called Nigel ran it. I think Guitar Works.
That's it. I do remember, just on the outskirts of Reading, weren't they?
Yeah.
I think, yes. I do remember. Okay. And you're right, they weren't there for very long, were they?
No.
Anyway, just wondered, seeing who it was, just seeing, I'm doing like a semi-interview here just to see if it all goes wrong with architects for you like that, you know, whether or not. I just got your CV on.
Right, okay, yeah, I've worked in a guitar shop, yeah.
So I didn't realise. So did you ever go full pro with Sylosis? As in, you know,
in terms of being able to live off it? No. But you know, we played quite technical, progressive thrash. Yeah. But I mean, the band is not over. I'll just state that now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There probably will be another album, hopefully this year, if I can make that happen. But yeah, no, it's a tricky industry to make money in, especially when you're playing that sort of music. And there's no complaints. It's not like, oh, people don't buy music or anything. It's just the way it is. You're just realistic. But yeah, it's I'm now lucky enough that I can pay my bills from music and being an architect as well.
That's cool.
So, yeah.
So how did that, you mentioned before we started rolling that you'd been friends with the architects guys for a while, or for a lot, so where did that relationship start?
I mean, not long after leaving ACM, I think we played shows together back in 2004, 2005.
Mm-hmm. So when they were starting out.
Yeah, exactly. And we were both young bands, both, I think, quite technically competent, stylistically a bit different. I mean, we sounded different then, and so did they. And yeah, we just became friends. I remember the first few times meeting them, especially Tom and Dan, just getting on with them and just quoting The Office non-stop. And just realising these guys are on my wavelength. This is cool. So we stayed friends, and they'd come stay at my parents' house when they recorded their second album in Reading. And over the years, just always pretty close. And then in 2012, their other guitarist Tim left, and they asked me to fill in. So I did some summer festivals with them. They actually asked me to join back then, and I was just like, oh, I can't. I've put so much time and effort into Sylosis, but I was always just being pulled into it. It's like, well, these guys are I don't know. Yeah, it was tricky. And then the following year, I did some filling in again, and whilst I wasn't filling in between that, Adam, who is now the other guitarist, was filling in as well.
Right.
So me and him have both filled in before we were actual members, and then just over the years, we became even closer. And then when Tom passed away, they just had all these touring commitments, and they wanted to do, the album that they'd put so much time and effort into, wanted to do that justice and tour it. Mm. So they were like, can you do this tour? And I was just like, yep, sure. And it just sort of, it wasn't really spoken about too early on, if I was going to sort of join full time, but I think we kind of just felt, that's where it was heading. And
it must be, I mean, I've read that Tom kept his illness pretty, private. So I don't know, when towards the latter stages, was it, had you been aware, or was it all?
Yeah. And maybe not to the full extent, but it was something that I was aware of. Yeah.
And then, I mean, I can't, I can't imagine, you have a very, when you've got a twin brother is obviously, a very special kind of relationship. And I imagine Dan must have had to do some deep soul searching about what to do, with the band.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, how did what were those sort of dynamics like when you did it always feel like, no, look, this is what Tom would have wanted and we should carry on? Or
I think so, yeah. It was never something that I think, especially on my part, it didn't feel very respectful to go, so what's going on? Are we going to continue? But I think that was sort of the feeling that it was going to go on, and you just sort of have. I mean, the main thing was seeing how writing went. Mm-hmm. So me and Dan writing, or how my writing would work. Would it still feel like Architects? Is it going to be good enough to carry on? Because I think Tom set the bar really high. So that was sort of the main thing. It was when we start writing together, it's that's going to sort of we'll see then what the future of the band looks like.
And does it feel now does it feel like the band have taken a slightly different direction since you've started co-writing, or has it felt like a more seamless transition?
I kind of leave it to Dan to sort of, because it sort of goes through his funnel.
Yeah.
And obviously he started the band, so The stuff that I write, especially on Holy Hell, it's just sort of trying to sound like Architects. So if I ever see a comment, I was like, oh, this song sounds like... I don't think anything sounds like a rip-off or anything before, but it just sounds like Architects. I'm sort of like, cool, that's tried.
Yeah,
I didn't want to like try and change anything from my side of things. So it's... I think... They always were changing their sound anyway. They did like 2 albums that were more cohesive in terms of their progression, and then I think with Tom writing they would have gone somewhere else. So I think inevitably the band's sound will progress and change anyway. Yeah.
When you first start, I mean, because obviously Architects, playing some reasonable sized venues and some big festivals and all that kind of stuff. Was that, had you ever experienced anything quite like that with Sylosis, or was it like a, wow, all of a sudden there's 30,000 people at a festival?
Yeah, no, we did some big shows, and like festivals, we always got to play like to big crowds, and I'd actually played Wembley about 3 years ago supporting Megadeth and Lamb of God, and then we just headlined Wembley. I was like, oh, I've been here, I've seen what that looks like, this is cool. But headlining it is definitely different.
Crazy. That's crazy. So, yeah. I hadn't realised. We've got, speaking of Megadeth, Marty Friedman's doing an interview here in about a month's time, I think. So it's just like going to be slightly crazy. He's one of the pioneers of all that kind of metal stuff. But well, that's cool. So let's. So we're kind of. Let's get ourselves up to date with Architects, and then we'll do a proper nerdy gear thing.
Okay.
So what is? Holy Hell's the latest album.
Yeah.
How's sort of touring that, or are you already thinking about writing the next one, or where are you going this year with
Dan's the same. I think we both enjoy creating and writing music, and I think I've always been like this. I just always want to make sure I'm making the best music possible, which takes time. So just constantly writing, always. But that being said, the album has only just come out, so there's a lot of touring left to do. So we just did 5 weeks in the UK and Europe, and then a few months off. I'll have a baby.
Oh, congratulations!
Dan's just had one back in August, and America, and then festivals, and there's a lot of touring. But
is Architects kind of as big in the States as they are over here, or does it feel like that's a market that you need to sort of...
It's catching up, definitely, yeah. It's probably like the last place to even out, because Europe and everywhere else, it's been amazing. But and the last few, I'm very lucky that I get to just step into the band as it's just going like that.
Yeah.
And I think on the last few tours, like, it's been great in America as well, so...
Yeah. What are you looking forward to most this year? Is there a particular festival or a lineup where you're going to get to play with someone and think, oh, I can't wait to meet such and such?
Yeah, I don't know if that band's been announced yet.
Oh, okay.
So, but festival season is always the most fun.
So there is. Okay. So what a bummer! I was hoping you'd kind of be able to give us like a bucket list of players that you'd love, or bands that you'd love to sort of be on a bill with.
Yeah, I'm sort of really bad at like just checking like lineups and what's been announced, but I'd heard that there's a band that I really like, maybe headlining one of the festivals. And
we're just going to leave it hanging, are we?
They take forever to write new albums. So yeah,
we'll see.
I don't know. Yeah,
oh, well. But so 2019, exciting stuff though. What's the biggest festival you're booked for this year?
Yeah, I don't pay enough attention. Probably like Rock am Park, one of those German ones, maybe.
Wow.
I think.
What kind of size crowd would you get at something like that?
I couldn't tell you. Thousands.
Great. Well, this last
honestly,
2 minutes of the interview.
I wear glasses, so I just see the front row and I'm like, cool. So.
on, let's nerdy gear out.
Sure,
so the last product that we talked about, I think, was your Squire Strat and your Park amplifier, and obviously things have come a long way since then. You've been pretty loyal to ESP for what, 10 years or more, I think. So
sort of, yeah. They were the first company that I was endorsed by in 2008.
Yeah.
With them for a good few years then. I only ever dealt with the guys in the UK.
Kelly?
Yes.
Yeah, good old Kelly.
Stopped playing them for a little while. And then I realised that I was missing them a lot.
So what was your first? Because so prior to being endorsed by them, you obviously bought them. So what was your first ESP guitar?
It was an MH301.
Yes.
I actually had like my science folder at school. I used to print off pictures of the ESP, even just LTDs, off the website and stick them and then laminate them on my science folder. So it was similar to this. It was see-through black, had a Floyd Rose, same shape, which is kind of cool. I haven't really thought about that. Yeah, it's like not too far off the first
full
one.
Circle.
Yeah, and then I had loads after that. MH250NT. There are loads.
Always
I bought loads.
Predominantly MH. So MH, if you're not, is like the Super Strat with the arch top kind of vibe to it. So always that, or have you done some of the Eclipses?
I had, Eclipses. I had an EC1000. I had an M1 at one point. I had, when I actually got endorsed, I can't remember what the first guitar I got was, a M2, which I just acquired back recently, like a maple neck reverse headstock.
Isn't that like the Kirk Hammett kind of vibe, isn't it?
Pretty much,
isn't it? Yeah.
So that, I think, if I'm lucky enough to get another custom shop, I might go for an M2 next time.
Right.
Just mix it up a bit.
So what was it about? I mean, presumably you, even if you didn't own them, you worked in a guitar shop, so you must have tried Ibanez's and Jacksons and lots of other alternatives to ESP. What was it about ESP that you just continue in?
The headstock.
It's like the headstock, do you?
I really did. I remember I had this video, VHS, called Drilling the Vein, which is a Roadrunner Records compilation. It had a Fear Factory video on there and a song called Replica, and the guitarist had an ESP custom shop. And I was just like, I hadn't seen any before then. And I was just like, that's the coolest headstock I've ever seen. And I just became obsessed with them. And honestly, I went for looks first, and then it just so happens that they play really well as well. But I just like things to look right.
So your latest incarnation on this custom MH style guitar, you've gone with Fluence pickups in there and EverTune.
Yes.
So all reasonably sort of modern stuff. What was it about those two things that appealed?
The Fishmans, I got recommended to check them out, and I'd been playing active pickups before, and I was blown away. Like, they genuinely, I felt enough of a difference
between like an old EMG 81, 85 type set.
And plus, I had also been experimenting with passive pickups, and don't actually have it set up right for it now. But cool thing about the Fishmans is you can have active voicing and then toggle switch, and you've got a passive sound. So that was a huge thing for me. Like, you can get different, obviously active, passive, or split coil, that kind of thing. So the range of sounds I can get with them is like what really made me go, right, I'm definitely sticking with these guys. So this is a modern, which you can then not coil tap. You can.
It's like a separate voice, isn't it? Like a secondary
change the voicing, to more like a standard sort of passive, and then that is a classic, which is like a PAF or maybe something like a JB or something. I can't remember. Not a JB because that's in the neck. But anyway, so and the EverTune, I hadn't ever tried before getting this guitar, so I was a bit worried because I wasn't sure like how it would feel in terms of like just my palm, or like if I'd get on with it. And now I think it's essential to architects, especially just because of the tuning we play in. The low string, we play in it's C sharp standard, and the low string is a G sharp. So that'll be an octave.
So that on a traditional scale length guitar, so this is what, 25 and a half inch scale length. If you're going to tune And what does that look like? A sort of a gauge 70 or something crazy?
It might be that, or a 72.
70,
yeah,
72.
I guess.
Real thick string.
Yeah.
But presumably tuned that low, you've got that problem of the initial note will sort of dive in pitch and then come back.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few tunings we use. So this is the rest of the strings usually stay the same pretty much. Mm-hmm. Then there's another tuner that goes down to F sharp. So the low strings are in unison but an octave apart.
What's the bass player tuning to?
Yeah, he follows
Same.
that. Yeah, he's got like a fanfare and that.
I bet he has.
He can just about maintain some sort of note. But so like you say, it means I can set it. You can set each string to sort of. You can set them to have vibrato or no vibrato. So I can still have vibrato on this string, but it means if I beat the string really hard, it doesn't.
It's really uncanny to hear that. I mean, I don't know if we can just.
Yeah, sure.
Like. I mean, there's a little bit of that tonal, but it's not, without the EverTune system, you'd hear a real pitch difference, wouldn't you, in that initial attack and the way the note then rings out.
And I just don't like baritone scale. I prefer, I'm not the tallest guy, so I like a shorter scale, and my hands aren't that big, so yeah, I just like a standard scale guitar, and the EverTune honestly compensates for any issues with tuning this low. Have
you still got guitars? Well, you must have obviously a load of guitars that are either a Floyd or a traditional hardtail or whatever.
A mix.
You were saying, tonally speaking, you think there's a difference between.
Yeah, I can't really put my finger on it. It feels like there's more low end on this
on the EverTune.
Yeah,
interesting.
I need to sort of like A/B with a guitar that's got like the same pickups and everything. And at the moment, I've got it's actually Tom's old E2, and it's got the kill switch Fishmans in it, which sound different. So it's like there's no use me trying to
A/B between that.
But yeah, no, it does. But I honestly, I can't say if that's a good or a bad thing. It feels a bit different to me. But for all the tuning and stuff, and it's just all these big chords we play, it's great to just be in tune all the way up the neck and just.
Band that's kind of trying to sort of, pioneer might be too strong a word, but really trying to approach songwriting in a without just playing 4-chord.
Yeah.
How do you take influences from other bands, or is it well, if you do, then so who are the other bands that you really take influence from?
It's more sort of taking influence from just completely different genres.
Right.
Like, we'll listen to, pop music even. Not like, we need to listen to pop music to get ideas, but like we just naturally will listen to, I don't know, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but I mean, I like even 80s pop, like Kate Bush and stuff.
Yeah.
Or like, I just appreciate like well-written songs.
Is that about perhaps trying to bring the structure of a traditional pop song, that
sometimes,
that sort of hook and this concept of like a hook, verse chorus type thing, but
not always. I feel like there are sort of architect songs that I thought before I was in the band that were like felt really cohesive and like well structured, and they are well structured, but there'll be like the first verse, a chorus, and then the second verse is like completely different. And I never even like twigged that, but just making sure that it all feels cohesive and that kind of thing. I think the focus is always for me in any music is just like the melody and like good choruses, or in Sylosis, if it wasn't necessarily like a chorus, it would be like a big epic melodic section. That's always like my focus. So like I always used to just, I can play a bit of piano, and what I've found really helpful is going and sitting at my parents' piano and just sort of blindly playing around, because you feel more inspired, because when you pick up a guitar, you're like, I'm used to seeing these frets. I know that if I go 8, 5, open, it's the generic sort of metal chord progression that everyone uses in their choruses and stuff. And just feeling stuff out and trying to find really good chord progressions and melodies. And even now and then, like, you'd find that you're just falling into the same patterns on the piano because it really just pulls you there. But at least you've approached it with a different mindset. So stuff like that I found really helpful for songwriting. And
I'd be lying if I said I wasn't any sort of an expert in this genre, but certainly in the interview I did with Misha Mansour 2 or 3 years ago, it was interesting that his drumming background heavily influenced the way he approached the sort of structure, not the structure songs, the riffs, I suppose.
Yeah,
the structure.
For sure.
Do you get the same with Dan?
Yeah.
Is that like?
Well, to be honest, like, I used to play drums a bit. I even bought my own double pedals just because I loved, like, I used to like just do this under my tables in school, like playing Slipknot songs in my head. And I just bought pedals that when I went to college, I could just go and play the drum kit in the music room, like, whenever I wanted. So like, I can't play drums anymore, but I pay attention to drummers, at least growing up, more than guitarists, because I sound quite arrogant. I got to a point on guitar where I sort of could hear something, but I know what they're doing. So like, drumming was a bit more interesting because it was, you know, I wasn't a drummer. So I really liked watching like videos of bands in the studio and just watching, like, maybe they'd share a clip of the drummer tracking, but you couldn't hear the music.
Right.
So watching the drummer like do cool stuff or do cool accents or little cymbal chokes and stuff in weird places was always like, oh, I could put this sort of riff to that. So I get inspired by drums.
Yeah.
In maybe not the same way as Misha, but yeah.
That's interesting. Anyway, massive shoehorn away from, we were talking about gear.
Yes.
Are you a big pedal guy? I mean, if we came to a architect's gig, would there be like a door-sized pedal board on the floor, or are you quite a sort of a minimalistic?
Yeah, I am a Kemper guy now. And
but that's okay. You can still have pedals with Kempers.
Or there's no point.
No, it's just literally
no, for me,
USB stick.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we're at the stage now where we're having to get a whole B rig because they'll have stuff flying to one festival and we need to go somewhere else and we can't get it all there in time. And just for the amount of flying, and sometimes we just fly in for festivals and weekends and then come home back to the UK if we're out in Europe. So flying with a Kemper is so much easier. Yeah. And all the songs, all the delays and everything will be to the tempo. And I know you can program in the Strymons to do that sort of stuff, but it's just so convenient just having it all.
So you're using all the effects and everything. And are you just doing all the changes via a MIDI track, or you've got a board? Have you?
Changes, yeah. We do play to a click, but we do our own changes, even though we don't need to. Probably look into doing that. But yeah, I just.
When was that changed then? So I mean, I know Kemper's been around forever, but you know, it seems in the last 3 or 4 years it's really sort of reached crazy proportions.
I can, it's kind of a shame because it's interesting, like when everyone's got different rigs. Yeah. But it's just really good. I was playing like modded Marshalls for years. A guy called Dan Gower in Essex who worked on some of my amps, and I'm so into like production and tone and stuff that I just wanted to have more control over my tone at front of house. So like I make all my own profiles and I'll A/B them with like, I spent ages like A/Bing my tone with like an album tone that I really like and profile that, and I want to get it so that the sound guy literally just has to go like that with the volume, which isn't always the case. It depends on the room that you're playing. But so for me it was just like, in 2015 I bought it from Andertons actually. So yeah, I actually got.
It's the only reason we invited you on.
I just remembered that. I got a note from someone who was working here just saying, love Dom and Heart, which was the last Sylosis album, something nice like that. And I was like, that's nice. So I
well done, whoever you were in Anderton's telesales.
So I just think that they're just great. If you're like really into your tone and stuff like that, it's just nice to knowing that, because if you're at a festival, especially if you turn up and you haven't got enough time to set up, if your front of house guys there, the stagehands will be putting the mics on the cabs, and like a mic millimeters makes a huge difference. All that kind of stuff. For me, I'll be like, I want my guitar to sound really good. So the Kemper just removes.
I think Kemper Live, or whatever your modeler of choice is, Kemper or Fractal or Helix or whatever it is, I totally get that.
Yeah.
100% get that. And particularly the practicality of flying and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But when you're in writing mood and in the studio, I would say a lot of guitar players that I know that choose to play live using that rig will still go for a much more traditional rig in the studio, often just because it's so much more tactile, just to very quickly hear different sounds. But
yeah, I mean, kind of. We sort of tracked the album backwards. So like I tracked the rhythms before we went into the studio using the Kemper, just in my bedroom. So in that sense, so I tracked the guitars, tracked the eyes, and then we would later reamp in the studio with Nolly Getgood, who was the bass player in Periphery.
Yeah.
And yeah, so when we were in the studio, it was fun to like play around with amps and cabs and like get the tone. But we had all the guitars had been tracked before that. But I mean, I love messing around with amps and stuff. And like, I'll send me and him nerd out on Gear all the time. Like I sent him a video the other day of, I was playing with a rectifier, and I've always found them, I just can't get them quite how I want them to. And I just started using a Boss EQ in the loop. I was like, oh, this is it. This sounds amazing. So I'd be like, check this out, send him videos. So like me and him nerd out on gear. So we do still get to play with real amps and have fun.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. So, and whilst you were using your modded Marshall stuff, were there any pedals that you kind of fell in love with at that time? And we've obviously on the floor, you've asked for a relatively simple setup today. We've just got a super Kraken amplifier, a bit of delay and reverb in the loop, and a tube screamer that we haven't turned on.
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty much it for me back in the day. I bought like a OD 808 around 2004. And I think I remember reading an interview with like Killswitch Engage saying that it just have it on all the time for your rhythm sound, and it's just like going to tighten up the low end.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, cool. So I got one and made a huge difference. It's so subtle, but at the same time, if you're like really into rhythm playing and gear and stuff, it'll make enough of a difference that you're like, oh, I see why everyone uses these.
I know when we did the original demo video of the Precision Drive, which is, it's that vibe, isn't it? And we just like, is this even working? It's like that, but you give it to the right guitar player, and like you say, it's a relatively subtle, but kind of once you've heard it, you don't want to ever not have it.
Especially if you're like really used to just being in the high gain world all the time, which I pretty much always am. Stuff like that, like I've got Precision Drive as well, and the difference it can be on that really noticeable because it's got like a lot of cool features. But actually, me and Adam are designing a pedal.
Are you?
I don't know if. I think we can talk about it. A company called Fortin. Mike Fortin.
Yeah, he's like the king of all the high gain stuff.
Boutique-y
isn't he?
world. Yeah, we're trying to come up with a boost again, but with
reinvent the wheel.
Oh yeah. No, but me and Adam were like, we really want to just be able to like have more control over like a tube screamer usually will give you some sort of mid-range emphasis. We want to be able to like hone in or move that around depending on the amp you're playing, and just a bit more control over the EQ side of things. Like for certain amps, like a rectifier, a bit more flubby, you want a little less low end and stuff like that. And just the tone knob and like your generic kind of pedal isn't enough. So like we want to just...
Well, you need to get permission from the band, because of course the pedal name would have to be the Tonal Architect, wouldn't it? Just saying.
Yeah, that's just a good one. Yeah.
Anyway, well look, it's really, really cool to meet you.
You too.
I love listening to you playing. I mean, it's technically it's phenomenally clever what you're playing and stuff like that. And it sounds cool as well. We're really low volume in here. It's nice to kind of hear some of that vibe and a relatively simple setup. So good luck with everything.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
And I'm excited to hear who this unknown band at the unknown festival with the unknown bucket list thing ends up being. But yeah, so if you want to find out more about Josh and his band, then was it www.architectsofficial.com?
Official. You might, if you've done the research more recently.
No, I'm just trying. You're right. I'm totally, because if you just type architect into Google, you'll probably get somebody who wanted to build an extension on your house.
At Architects on Instagram, that's the main one, isn't it? Instagram.
It's where all the kids are these days.
Yeah.
That's why I don't know anything about it. Right, anyway, thanks for tuning in, guys. Please like and subscribe if you want to see more, and we shall see you on another episode of Andertons TV sometime soon, probably tomorrow. Anyway, see you later. Bye.